check those out, so I won't miss any. But if we have too many that we have to roll over, because sometimes the questions sort of expand, and I think that's maybe helpful as well, then we can maybe carry it on. I mean, I'm here basically. We're all locked down, so I'm here to help, and I'm around, obviously. So I'm not going anywhere, as none of us are. So if the demand is there and this is cool, I'll just be around for every Tuesday at 6 and think up those questions. And yeah, if I can help, which it seems that I'm doing, then amazing. I'm more than happy to do that. So wicked. Let's get to the first question. So and I'm not going to mention the names just because well, not that anyone's like going anonymously, but we just cut to the chase. So how important is content and consistency? How important is content and consistency as an upcoming artist producer? There was a bit more to this question. I think the context of it was that the person that emailed me was saying about like being an upcoming artist, like releasing a track a day, like that kind of thing. And I thought about this question, and to me, I'm always quality over quantity. So as much as like that stuff is great, I think you've just got to make sure that the quality control is completely on point, because I think in this day and age, like you can definitely release a track every day, but for me, I'd be more inclined to maybe set yourself that target, because I think coming up with a track a day and finishing it, bouncing it, or finishing the song, or whatever it is that you have to finish within the song, you know, whether you are producing just the beat or the whole thing, or as I said, writing the song or the melody, that's a really good thing. But I would say, like, just be really honest with yourself, and if you feel that it can be released, and if you feel that, like, if you're a producer, if you've got 99 Problems instrumental followed by Dirt Off Your Shoulder instrumental, and you feel like you're just going to keep going, and then next one is like Did You See instrumental, and then you just keep going, then they like wicked for you. But just make sure that quality is up there, because yeah, it's all about quality. And I think I often think about this, you know, in this sort of train that we're on. It's all about, like, when all of us, sorry to be morbid, but like when all of us die, there's going to be just a handful of things that people are going to remember you for. Like, even if you take like a legend, like, I don't know, Rihanna, people will still come back to Umbrella. I mean, she's had like more hits than most people, but yeah, the quality, really, like, keep searching for making things as good as they can. I just checked like a question as I was seeing the thing at the bottom of the screen, and that's from my really good friend Katrin, who said, what about art and music? And that is a great question. I have to answer it now, because Katrin's such a great, incredible artist. Katrin Friedrichs, you guys need to check her out. Just does the most incredible art. We've been friends for a while, and I would say that Katrin, your art really inspires me musically. And my lovely wife Sarah is a sculptor, and she takes me, well, seeing her work is inspiring, and we go to galleries, well, when we're allowed to go to galleries, and check art out. Well, we actually met Katrin when we were at a weekend in Berlin, like checking the art out. So I think it's super important, because and I think it probably goes both ways. I mean, I've been to your studio, Katrin, where you work, and you have like music blasting out. So I think there's a two-way street in this, and I think that if you hit a block sometimes creatively, it's really, really powerful to go to a gallery, just to check out the work of a great artist like Katrin, and just to see that. And I think that so much, like in this day and age, you know, we can worry about networking and things like social media, and don't get me wrong, all that is important, but at the end of the day, art is about connection, and whether it's visual, or whether it's what's coming out the speakers, whether it's, you know, touch kind of sense, I think all these things are super important. So that's a shortish shortish answer for a great question, but yeah, definitely check out Catherine's work because it's seriously inspiring. You know, you could look at that all day and come up with song after song. The next question is: I want to write songs for a living, but I'm not interested in performing. I'm classically trained in cello and play the guitar and bass. Okay, that's wicked that you play 3 instruments. What advice would you give? Okay, I guess the only thing I'd say, if not that it's a negative at all, because I think that the classical thing is amazing. It's hard to say because I don't really know how you play guitar or bass, whether that's sight reading. But for me, it's really important to get the balance of the two, of being able to read stuff, but also being able to feel stuff. And I think that if you can play guitar and bass and cello, then that's a brilliant start. I think the more instruments you can play, for me, the better. And I think we talked about this last week, but in case I'm assuming that only a few people that were here last week are here this week, but so I can repeat myself without you think I'm being annoying. But yeah, I think writing, you just have to do it. You have to study the greats. You have to you get a Spotify playlist with some great songs, which you may like, you may not even like, but that feel of a level that you could appreciate in whatever way, and like look at the verses and look at the choruses and see how the melodies work and see how the chords work and see how all the pieces come together. And I think that that's the best thing that you could do, even if you studied like one song a week, and then you would just by osmosis you would just become a better songwriter through that. And then it's obviously about getting in the room really with co-writers if that's what you want to do, or not. I mean, if you're like an artist like Elliott Smith, I don't think he really co-wrote and wrote the most incredible songs. So it's not to say you have to do that, but I definitely think there's positives to co-writing. If there's one thing that you feel that is better, that you're more on the chords, or you're better at melodies, or you're not so good at lyrics, and just to pick up stuff from other people. So I hope that helps. But cello, guitar and bass, I mean, that's like pretty much a one-man band. You just need a drum machine and you're away. What advice would you give to upcoming producers trying to network with bigger artists? Okay, I saw this earlier when I wrote it down, and I thought about this. Okay, so networking to start with, I think it comes back to quality, and I think that if you had 4 hours in a day, I would definitely spend like 3.5 on music and then half on networking. I think the networking is important to a degree, but I think once you get your team of people that you really trust set up, they'll do that for you. And ultimately, I think like the end goal is to be able to be in the studio and creating, and know that people are out there kind of networking for you and bringing in the opportunities. But I think from the beginning, the networking, I mean, it's maybe DMing people or messaging people at the point though when whatever it is that you're doing is incredible. So I would just take the time and just really make sure that coming back to what I was saying before about quality over quantity, just make sure that music, that song, that melody, that lyric, that concept is on point. And if you don't even trust yourself, which is really hard at the beginning. I mean, I remember, well, it still happens. Like I'll do a mix and play it to my wife, and she'll just go, I don't really know what you've been doing in the studio, because the demo is like so much better. So sometimes that is just play it in different environments. Play it while you're making dinner, or play it as loud as you can, play it on headphones, play it, and just really try and see it in the mix of the kind of stuff that you're trying to do. So that will improve you. And then the network, then you don't really have to network, which is brilliant, because you can just have fun, and then the people will come to you because your stuff's good enough, but it is taking the time doing the fun stuff. I mean, I've definitely, someone said something to me once that just remained with me for a long time, which was, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, which I think ultimately, if you're putting stuff out there, even if you've kind of burned one bridge because you sent out something that you thought, shit, I shouldn't have sent that out so soon, there's going to be other people there that are hearing your stuff for the first time, and it is hard to sort of erase that when you put something out that's not right. I mean, I've done it on even on a mix where I just rushed it out, and this was a long time ago, and realised that the de-esser, which is basically when you take the S sounds down from on a vocalist, on a vocal, I'd like turn that up too far, and like if you'd have heard the vocal, you would not want to hear it again, and you'd have been like, who is this joker that's done this this mix? I felt terrible about it. Once it's out there, you can't really recall it, especially if it's online, or if people have heard it. So yeah, I think getting the stuff right. But in terms of networking with bigger artists, I mean, I think there's always like an appeal of working with great artists, and I've been really lucky where I've had that kind of like buzz of being flown to America and working with Britney, or being in the room with Celine Dion, and like it is amazing. But honestly, for me, like the buzz is finding an artist that is a new artist and going on that journey together. Even whether it's an artist that's just kind of breaking, like a Stormzy when we were working on Gangsters and Prayer, or Dave was obviously doing stuff when we worked on the first EP. He had stuff out, but I think he had Thiago Silva when we first started working. But that for me is way more exciting, I guess. So given the chance, I mean, all I'm trying to say is that I see a lot of people kind of chasing the bigger artists, thinking that that's going to be great. But I think like the pressure that comes with being a great artist is definitely transferred into the room, and you sometimes have this like whole corporation of people that are, there's the sort of the baggage, like the good baggage, like management always turning up, and I don't know, I just think it's a bit more intimate with newer artists, and I think that's definitely a way of making a good name for yourself is coming up with, finding a brilliant artist and coming up with a sound between you. So yeah, long answer to that, but concentrate on the music and maybe don't get hung up on the artist, because usually those big artists have the people that they'll go to anyway. So if you're just trying to cut through, then it's a good idea to try and find someone that's new. I mean, people are just all around, on socials. It's not that difficult to find great people. And if you've got a great beat or a skill for songwriting, lyric writing, whatever, mixing, then I'm sure that we're all receptive to what comes in. So yeah. I started learning to play the piano in June. I enjoy playing it, but would like to get more into the theory side of things and maybe the writing process too. Okay, so I think we discussed the writing process, how you get into that. But the theory side of things, I have a book that I found recently. I was left a wonderful piano in the studio. You probably can't see it now, it's just behind the speakers, but and some music books, and I am unable to read music. I've tried a million times. I've even done a gig where I was reading music and got so caught out because I was like bluffing it because I really needed the money at the time. So I had the music there, and I thought it'd be really clever if in this like orchestra I turned the page at the same time as the harpist. But what I didn't realise was that the scores are all different. So when someone saw me turning the same page as the harpist, they thought, well, why are you actually reading the harp score? Because you're meant to be reading the guitar thing. And it turned out that I was meant to be on like page 38 and I was on page 4. So I don't advise ever trying to bluff your way through a sight reading gig when you're in an orchestra. But I was fired and not invited back. But for whatever reason, I had a block with learning to read music. So I just found this book, which was to me like a gift. This is like a really, really old one, but it's the Michael Aaron piano course, this is like literally grade 1, so you can see what I'm learning. Like it's don't laugh, but I mean it's the simplest thing. But I'm doing it, and I'm loving it, and I'm getting a lot out of it. And actually, I'm on book 2 now, and I'm getting through. I've got like 5 books, so I really recommend that to get into theory. And I guess if you're going, maybe that you're super advanced, but for me, like the real book of jazz standards is really good if you're going like into super theory. I recommend also the Berklee School of Music online courses, which I've done like a load of those, and I just think those guys over a 3-month time, it's a bit of an investment of money, but I've done so many of those courses. I just recommend that college and that online course. You know, it's so immersive. You have to really do like dedicate a lot of time to it, but it's absolutely incredible. So massively recommend Berklee College of Music for theory and basically everything, like Ableton, Pro Tools, mixing, all that stuff. Okay, what's the difference between software instruments and real instruments, in your opinion? Okay, so I use a combination of the two. So if it's people that are songwriters, not producers, that don't use computers, in what do you call it, DAWs, the software that we use to produce, you've got plugins and they're samples of pianos and all sorts of things, and guitars and basses and stuff. I think those things are really convenient for getting something going quickly if speed is the thing, because you just want to catch a vibe with an artist or just hear how something's going to sound. And don't get me wrong, we've all got like on Logic and Pro Tools and Ableton like so many sounds which are brilliant. For me though, I think it's really important in studios for there to be like some kind of instrument. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've worked with people that like Emanike and Terrell 169, who are just like the masters of like drawing in notes, and it's incredible, and I love those guys, and the music is brilliant. But for me, just to be able to have something you can kind of that is tangible there, and that you can also, if an artist is coming in, you can just kind of just like noodle around on, I think is really important. Like the visceral nature of music is important. I think that we all spend so long on computers as well. Like I really want to try and get off my computer if possible, because it makes me feel a bit like a computer programmer and not an artist, which is not really the feeling that I want to get from music. I want to feel like I'm playing this weird old guitar or like an old synth or whatever. And I think you can pick up all sorts of like weird and wonderful things on eBay, like super cheap. It doesn't have to be like that really expensive vintage synth or just like a real like beaten up old guitar that you could teach yourself. Even you just play on two strings and just get a mic into your interface and just play. So yeah, I recommend just if it's just one thing, or yeah, like a tambourine, something super cheap that you can just add to your productions that just gives it that little bit of human element. But software instruments are really cool, and I love them. Josh just texted me, how do you buy outboard gear on a budget? What gear did you start with? Okay, I started with, I'll answer that in reverse. I started with a 4-track, which just shows you how old I am, what fossil you're listening to. A 4-track tape player. Probably that's not helpful though, is it? When I did get a computer, like a basic laptop, I'm just trying to think of the process, but I also had an MPC drum machine, which I've always had MPC drum machines, so there was always like that side of things. So when it comes to output, I tell you what I did, which I thought was a good, definitely served me well, was I used to rent a lot of stuff that I read about, and I tried it, and if I liked it, then I'd try and get it off eBay, and I've like, I don't know, I'm like a gear sort of tradesman in terms of I've just gone through so much gear to find the stuff that I really like. And I think that's kind of what you have to do at the beginning, because you can read a review on something, it sounds brilliant, and then you get it and you think, maybe I wish I hadn't bought that because it's like not the thing, or I thought it was going to do something else, it didn't really. And there's so much stuff out there. So I don't know if that answers the question. Oh, but how do you buy outboard gear on a budget? Yeah, outboard. I think that outboard is coming down in price, to be honest. This is stuff by like Warm Audio and all that kind of stuff. I guess that if you can try before you buy, which is something that I always need to do more, because I just sometimes go for it and then end up like selling it soon after. Secondhand, maybe, I don't know, if you get something, you can maybe swap it. Reverb's a really good app for buying and selling gear, as well as obviously eBay. But and yeah, the stuff that I started with, basic kind of stuff, and then I for mixing I had a Alan Smart C2 compressor, and then I had a very early Chandler Summing mixer, and I mixed Set Fire to the Rain on that, and lots of like the Tinchy stuff and Tayo stuff. I just used to love the sound of that. And what else did I have? That was kind of it. I mean, I've always liked good preamps and trying to experiment with different mics and stuff. But to be fair, like I would say, like as an overall thing, don't get me wrong, I've done it, but like learn from me, because I wasted years like of my life like chasing the gear. I mean, for me it's about sound, obviously it's not about the gear, but I think you can get hooked on a bit of, like, I've seen it with a lot of people and I recognise it because it's definitely myself, so I'm not putting this on anybody, because it's basically me, but where you kind of think, I want to do that mix, or I want to write that song, but I kind of haven't got that, so I need to get that and need to get that. The bottom line is that if you're a songwriter, I mean, this is like a fossilised piece of equipment, but like, look at that Sony tape player. If you had that, I mean, I've got a mic on it, you had the best guitar riff in the world. If you had like Yesterday by the Beatles and that melody and that lyric, that into that cassette. Most difficult thing is like how you actually send that, because if you send it through the post, people would just think you're just some sort of joker. But how you transfer it into digital, I'm not too sure. But for the point that I'm trying to make is that, you know, if you're doing that on a voice note and you're sending it to someone, and you've got the song there, that's the thing. So don't get too sort of hooked on the gear side of it. Obviously gear is great because it's fun, but great gear and bad ideas is never going to be a good idea. So just keep concentrating on the quality. And like, there's so many people that made amazing records with like no gear at all. So all stock plugins that come with every DAW that you get are really good enough. I think I read somewhere that the Disclosure first record, they did that all with like the stock things inside Logic, and that's an incredible record. So yeah, keep it simple, someone just said. I know, Josh, you're texting the stuff through, but I just saw a message. Any tips on mixing drums to help them pop? Okay. Mixing drums to make them pop. Something that's really good is parallel compression. I don't know if that is something that is obvious to say or not, but how would I describe that? And I won't. We'll try and maybe put some resources for you to read at the end of this. I will save this as a Instagram TV thing, because obviously, if people are just getting into songwriting, like, this could get a little bit long for people, but because I don't know the mix of people that are just starting off, or people that are like wicked, great mixers. But parallel compression, where you send out your drums to another bus and you do something with that bus which is gonna, what you think help make them pop. So it can be primarily you're going to compress like the hell out of those drums, and you're going to tuck the duplicate of the drums under very low and just blend it in. And I would probably make those drums that you're blending very bright, and add some sort of transient plugin, transient designer, or the contact transient shaper I really like. So just make it like super spiky and just see how it affects the sound of your drums. That will definitely make them pop. And parallel compression, yeah, you can obviously like Google that and get some good tips, but I hope that helps. Thank you, Josh. Best of advice for getting out of a rut / creative block. Okay, I think that it's very easy to be like hard on yourself in creativity, and I think that usually if there's a block, your expectations are sort of running riot, and you think, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It's all about, I mean, without sounding like a psychopath, it's all about like taming the voices in your head. Those little voices that I think we all get. I definitely get them. Maybe I need to see a doctor, psychiatrist. But you get those voices like, we should have done this by now. We should, we've only got one day to write this song, or, am I ever going to make it? Am I ever going to get a management deal or a publishing deal or whatever else? I just think the first thing is take the pressure off. Like, it's not that important. We're making music. It's got to be fun. So I would say go for a walk, get out into nature, have a drink, have some fun, like just take the pressure off, and then reapproach it. And actually kind of ask yourself write down 5 things that you want to achieve from like the next couple of hours. What is it that you really wanted to do? Because I think that sometimes you can get into a creative block as well if everything is becoming a bit overwhelming. And I haven't got one here where you can see. Well, you can't. But I'm surrounded by paper, because I find it really cathartic for me to like get all the stuff that's in my head out onto paper. I have these huge like A3 books, which I write in all the time, and I like mind maps and all this kind of stuff that I'm constantly doing. And I think that really helps, because then you can just, if you find like the creative rut is I can't get the lyric, then just concentrate on the beat for a bit, or concentrate on the next verse, or the melody, or something else, and then you'll find that you'll come back, and you'll be a lot freer at that point. One piece of advice you'd give your younger self. I think I'd definitely say, don't worry. I think that we are, as artists, we're all kind of anxious, and I suffer from a lot of anxiety and things like, I think I said it last week, imposter syndrome in the studio. But I do think there has to come a time where you just go, fuck it. And I'm still working on that, but I think the advice would be, try and be yourself, and sort of be free from all that stuff that sort of always seems to sort of come in and can sort of derail you. Don't really care what people think, but I guess with that is obviously like you have to be kind and take people's feelings into account. But yeah, that would be the advice, which is pretty long-winded, but yeah. These texts are coming through nicely. I mean, it's like I don't even have to watch the thing, because it definitely, that derails me to just see like my friends that are on the on this. Which artists / songwriters inspire you? I would honestly say like every artist, and we talked about it before, but artists from the literal sense of Catherine Friedrichs, to classical artists, to futuristic electronic artists. Sorry to like sound okay, I will be specific. MGMT like massively inspire me. Those guys, just for the musicality and the chords and the melodies. Pink Floyd, Radiohead, Tyler the Creator. Just there's so many great people out there. Songwriters, again, like I'll give you a list, but people that I've worked with so many great songwriters. So songwriter artists, I mean, I think as an artist, I'd have to say that Adele is like the best writer. I don't know if that's an obvious thing to say, but just the quality of her writing is like as good as I think anyone that has ever walked the earth. I mean, it's literally the way she's able to sing a lyric that is so, like, you think that's kind of obvious, and but it's so, it's not kind of like songy, you know, like songwriting speak can get a little bit, it just sounds like you're writing a song. I mean, with her, it always sounds, it's like the lyrics that she writes are on a Bob Dylan level for me. But the other writers, I mean, Gingin, Camille Purcell, all the artists that I've worked with are obviously doing what they're doing for a reason, and they're amazing. But I'm a big fan of a lot of the new, younger American writers coming through, but obviously all the Ross Golans and the Max Martins and the Bonnie McKees and all those people that have just smashed it over the years, as well as like going back to the classics, you know, the Kinks and the Doors, and I mean, there's just such a. I watched this. Sarah and I watched this documentary on the Bee Gees. I didn't realise that those guys like had this incredible career before like we even knew about Staying Alive. Like they were like the Beatles, and then actually their career kind of plateaued, and they were going to get dropped, and then they decided to like come up with this Philly soul thing. They went to Miami and moved to Miami. Someone suggested that they did do some outro on a song like in falsetto, and then suddenly like that was the thing, but they were about to get dropped. Then as it went on, they kind of split up after this amazing career as the Bee Gees, and then Robin Gibb it showed us the songs that Robin Gibb had written, like which you are going to know, like with Dolly Parton and Barbra Streisand, and I mean, yeah, what a songwriter he is. So I mean, it's hard because there are so many, and I'm like just a massive fan of great music. So you could go to the jazz greats through to, I mean, it's I think what I love about music is that it never stops. You know, it's huge. As a producer, what would you look for in a manager? Good question. I think for me it's about someone you can really trust, that will be there fighting your corner, that understands you, that understands the bigger picture and understands where you want to get to on a week by week, but then on a yearly, 6 month, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year plan sort of level. I think that then you feel like you're part of a team and you can be working towards something together, and that's really powerful. I wouldn't necessarily say it's about someone that's most sort of hugely connected. If that's like if you're just starting out, obviously those contacts are important, but I do think of reputation. If it's someone that is like out there, that has a good reputation, and for me it's really important that person represents you in a way that you feel comfortable with, like in terms of someone that's courteous and polite, and because you know someone's getting you the gigs or the songs cut or whatever, but leaving this sort of trail of destruction where you've got to remember that a manager is absolutely representing you, and so every time that person picks up the phone to someone else when you're making your music, they are like a representation of you. So I think, courteous, professional are the things at the very beginning, and then I think on a deeper level, that connection with you, someone that is really there for you and is going to protect you come sort of hell or high water, and will be there for you when things aren't necessarily always going well, where in your career there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be the points where you're kind of, sometimes feels like it's a weird analogy, but I don't know why I think about this, but like a fruit machine where you're putting all this money in, and sometimes you just go around and you're like, well, I've lost like all my money. But then sometimes you just put something in and you collect, and then you're on a sort of thing where you can nudge and you keep collecting for a while because it's just this sort of afterglow of success. But then there's other times where, in order to stay in the game, you've got to go back to basics and reinvent yourself and go, well, actually I've done this now I've got to do this, and I've got to learn the piano or learn to sight read, or because that's going to enable me to write music for films or do all manner of different things, like open my mind, go to galleries. So there is a time where it's, and you need a manager that's going to stand by you at those points, that isn't just there for the commission, that is like, no, I can see the big picture, because when this guy comes out of hibernation after having studied the piano or cello or songwriting for 6 months, that they're going to be way better, and they're going to be further up the ladder of sort of knowledge and expertise. So I just saw, because I think Josh sent me another message, but have you ever worked with Florence and the Machine? Yes, I have. I worked on the radio mix of You've Got the Love. It's not that different from the original. I mean, it's so good. Like, how do you top that? But I think I worked on the drums, made the drums a little bit tougher because they're obviously like the original super live, and I think I put a sub bass in and a Roland SH1 like monophonic synth solo at the end. But I mean, it's such a great version. That how can you top that? How do you approach sessions when working with a brand new artist? Do you get new ideas going, or do you listen to demos and build a new vibe? Let me just read that again, sorry. How do you approach sessions when working with a brand new artist? Do you get new ideas going, or do you listen to demos and build a new vibe? I think listening to demos, for sure, just to see where the artist is at when you're working with someone for the first time. I mean, I guess I've done this a lot because I've worked with a lot of people for the first time, and I would say that the thing for me is always to like have as long a conversation as you can. Obviously without killing the vibe if someone's there and they wanted to get stuck in, but for me, like really trying to understand the artist as a person, in terms of, you can listen to the demos, but what do they love about the demos? Like the quality of the questions are often like the quality of the experience in the studio. Think about like which track do you like the most, ask the questions, like what are you looking for from me? Like put your cards on the table, because I think if you can cut to the chase with an artist, rather than kind of like doing, I mean, ultimately when you're doing it at the beginning, it's super awkward, because meeting someone new can be weird anyway, but then like expecting to sing in front of that person or to play the guitar, or like, I still find it weird, because it's just not really a natural kind of thing. I mean, you'd usually know someone for like a few weeks before you got the guitar out, but you're expected to be like, doing whatever. And I mean, it does take time. I think you have to get over that, but I think the way to get over it is to really like get to know each other super quickly and just ask some great questions, and realize that they're going to be as nervous as you are, and just try and overcome it if you can, and then start building some vibes. But I also think when you're doing that, like, just keep an eye on, I think that like one of the arts of production and working with people is kind of reading people and reading their body language, and just seeing, like, if you're making a beat and the artist is over there, just keeping an eye on it and just making sure that maybe they're feeling the vibe. I mean, in this day and age, probably on their phone, but just see if there's a little sort of head nod or something, or just ask them and just say, what do you think about this? I mean, I've definitely done the thing where someone's been lost in maybe emails or something. I'd be coming up with a beat for a couple of hours, and then I said, do you like it? And they said, not really, no. So I wish I'd have asked that question a lot sooner. But yeah, I think the keys sometimes are in the question and just getting to know someone. And ultimately, time spent getting to know somebody will pay dividends in like when I was doing some stuff recently on my record, I purposely wanted to work with the artist for a day, and it was amazing like what we got through being able to like have this long chat and chat about the concept of the record. And then when we actually came to it, it was almost like we'd kind of written the song. It was weird, but I think that because we'd had those conversations and we discussed what we wanted to do, and I'd done background work on obviously on all the great artists that were coming in. That's another thing to do is just, you know, do as much background. If you know, follow them on socials and work out the things they like and they don't like, and you can just save yourself so much time that way. So yeah. How do you know when a track is finished? That's another good question. I mean, there's definitely been times where I've sort of laboured over a mix or a production and it's gone too far. Usually my wife Sarah tells me that I'm going too far because I'm just lost in the. But I actually, I mean, a few years ago it definitely was the case. I think I've got a lot better at being objective now and realizing that sometimes you've got to ask yourself what you're chasing on some of these whether it's the mix or the song. I mean, I think a song you can kind of feel if it's finished. I think a mix, for me, Sarah again reminded me last week that I didn't say this when someone asked a question, but I think if you can honestly like A-B something, if you can put another track which you know to be really good in the equation and put your track on and just know that all the elements stand up, whether it's the mix or whether it's the song or whatever thing you're doing, and that it stands up with something that you know is one of your favorite tracks that's kind of done well or has touched like a certain amount of people, that you hold this track to be in high esteem, and you can honestly say, no, this is up there, then that's a really good kind of benchmark, because you know just at that point it gives you the confidence. But I think if you're honest with yourself, you kind of know, and then sometimes you're like, I've got a new compressor and I just want to hear what that sounds like, and that's always good. But I would definitely, if you're producing or even if you're writing, I would make sure that you make, like I always make for mixes and productions and songs, different sessions, so that you can go back and that actually you may even think you're finished, but it's worth sometimes going back and just checking out that early version, because there's maybe some magic that is in there that you've over refined it, or you've over polished it. So let me see if. Do you work with an assistant to help with editing and speed up turnaround time? I don't, no. But I've been very, very lucky in the past to work with a wonderful lady called Beatrice Artola, and she was doing a lot of editing for me when I was doing quite a lot of stuff in America, and we worked on Set Fire to the Rain together. And to see her, because she put some serious hours in on that editing rig, to see her like win a Grammy was like one of the best moments I've ever had, just to see like all that hard work repaid. And then after that I worked with another amazing engineer called Graham Archer. So these guys are not really assistants, they're obviously fully fledged engineers. And then after that worked with my great friend and amazing engineer Manon Grangin, who has been like engineer of the year breakthrough engineer of the year. I don't know if you're a mix engineer, if even if you're on this, I think you said you were going to be on this thing, Manon, but whether you are mix engineer, I mean, you are in my eyes mix engineer, so let's just say you got it anyway if you haven't, at the MPG Awards. And so those amazing engineers would also edit stuff within the sessions, but no, I tend to do it at this point because I'm promoting my record as well, so it's not like I'm doing like a million sessions. So I am doing a lot of the editing myself, which takes a lot longer than a skilled expert like someone like Manon, but I get there in the end. So what was it like performing live for the first time? I remember, like, for the first time, I mean, I tell you, the first time on piano was this time last year with Dave at the Brits, and that was like one of the biggest buzzes I've ever had. But the first time on piano, and that was terrifying. I mean, I was literally beyond terrified. I think there's a point where terror, you're actually not afraid anymore, because you're just like, I'm just beyond actually a feeling at this point. I just know that I've got to do this for Dave. So yeah, that's what that was like. And then, like, performing the first time on guitar, I think I was very young. I think it went really badly. I think the guitar went out of tune because I put new strings on my guitar. So just completely just did not smash it at all. Guitar went out of tune. Had to probably use someone else's guitar, like, by which time kids in school were just like, this guy's a joker. So early performances, not great. Got better as I got older. Have you ever had a time when you've not delivered in a session? How did you get through it? Have you ever had a time when you've not delivered in a session? How did you get through it? Yes, like loads of times. I guess it's like a sliding scale of delivery, in terms of, you know, people say always do your best, but if you're sort of competitive and you feel like you didn't deliver because for whatever reason, I mean, just sometimes the stars don't go. You don't click with an artist, or I don't know. There's some technical stuff going on. I think the thing is to try and learn from it. But I don't know. I am super hard on myself, and I guess everyone here is the same. And I think that, I guess that's what gets you better in a way. But how did you get through it? I guess, how did you get through the session? I mean, I think that's part of the challenge. I mean, if you look at it as a challenge rather than an obstacle, you know, you're going to get artists in the studio that don't want to be there, that don't really care for being in the studio, don't want to be in the studio. I mean, that happens a lot. It becomes a bit of a game where you're like, well, let's just see what we can do to win over the situation, or change the vibe up. Or I think when things are, you can feel, like, going back to reading the room, you can feel when the room is getting kind of weird, and then it's maybe time to take a break, have a coffee, go for a walk, get to know the artist a bit more, or just literally just go, look, I'm not sure how this is going, let's just try another thing. And that's where it comes to, I think it's really important to again have instruments where you can just do stuff in the studio and you know, feel like you're a musician, and that there is a bit of a vibe going on in the studio. Or else, obviously, if that's not your thing, then just building something that's completely different, just to see, and not be too attached with stuff. What methods have you seen top artists focus on that others could implement? What methods have you seen top artists focus on that others could implement? Sorry. Great question. Okay, let me think. Well, Adele is crazy on lyrics. Like, she's not letting any lyric go that is not 200% great, and I can tell how much it affects her in the studio if something's not right. Stormzy is the same. Dave. It's interesting that those three artists, as everyone else does, but in a way, I mean, Craig David the same. And if there's anyone left out, I haven't gone through like a full list of artists I've ever worked with, so I hope I'm not offending anyone. But like attention to detail. I mean, Stormzy, Manon will tell you, literally 200 takes on one line to get it right. But when that's right and when that vocal comp comes together, it's so clear and it's so powerful and every line is perfect. And I think that perfectionism, which obviously can be seen as a negative because you've got to know when to move on, but that just athletic ability to be like, I'm going to go back in the booth, I'm going to make this better, I'm going to get a better line, is just, that's inspiring to me. That's something that I would pass on as a great thing. Methods that you've seen top artists focus on. The other thing I find really interesting is that just to dispel any myths, in case anyone is sort of feeling like you have to do like 19-hour days or like stay up till 3 o'clock if that's not your thing, but maybe you think that like artists are doing that. I mean, a lot of artists do, because they're night owls, and that's good, because like 50% of the population sleep at night and 50% sleep at night. We all sleep at night. You know what I'm saying? 50% are morning birds, larks, and the other are night owls. That's it. Got there in the end. But for me, like one thing I've noticed, which is a thing which took me by surprise when I was working with Damon Albarn, was that he is like obviously one of the most incredible, prolific people, artist, musician, singer. I mean, it's just his output and the quality of his output is just insane, and he works like business hours. You know, I mean, he's literally in early, 9 till 6. Adele was like 10 till 6. When I was working with Stormzy, it was a little bit later, but it was still like 2 till 9. And I think that getting into that flow is really important. And I've seen that with a lot of artists. I mean, I'm there to support the artist. So if the best artist in the world comes in and works at a time which is like hugely inconvenient to me, I'll obviously adjust my body clock to accommodate that. But I think that the thing that I'm trying to dispel is that you have to go through and every day has to be like 18 hours, or for me, we're not really built for that. And I think that what happens is that you end up doing like smashing out one 18-hour day, was I used to when I was a kid. And then you wouldn't feel that motivated to go in the next day, and then you're up. But I think definitely the greatest artists that I've ever worked with keep this kind of healthy time out of the studio, because you also want to feel very inspired when you come back in. Sarah, my wife, asked a question. You're a multi-instrumentalist. What's your advice to producers who don't play instruments in terms of cutting through? That is a good question, Sarah. And someone actually answered, William Baxter answered, no wives. That's quite interesting as well. You're an instrumentalist. What's your advice to producers who don't play instruments in terms of cutting through? I think it's good to learn. Like I've said it before, you know, in whatever capacity, just having a guitar or a cheap keyboard around. Like I'm honestly, like I wouldn't call myself. I mean, I guess I'm a multi-instrumentalist, but even that, like if you heard me play, it's not like you wouldn't be blown away by like my keys playing. I've been playing keys for years, so it's not like I think that you're an amazing instrumentalist or you're not. So I would say that you can obviously like cut through without playing an instrument, but I think it's just a bit of an icebreaker, and I think that seeing yourself as a musician first and foremost is really important, because you know the laptop age is amazing, but ultimately expression, I feel, is it's good to have something tangible. So I didn't really maybe I'll answer that question brilliantly, but yeah, I think you can cut through without being a multi-instrumentalist, but it really helped. So my advice would be to learn one instrument. Piano or guitar if you had to pick. That's very, very hard for me, but you did ask, so I'm going to answer the guitar. As much as that's my personal thing, because I've got such a history with guitar and such a love for guitar players. I spent 8 hours a day practicing, and I just still play guitar every day, and I just absolutely love it. But I think if someone was out there, I would say, I mean, if anyone's out there thinking of which do I learn, I think probably the keys as a songwriting and production tool is like a smarter move, just because if you play keys well, then you can like get the harpsichord sound out, or you can play synth really well, and like when I see people play keys really well, and then they're able to jump on like a Fender Rhodes or go from a piano to a Moog synth or whatever. It's just it just blows my mind, because it's so expressive. There's so much you can do. There's obviously a guitar, you've got acoustic, electric, and classical and stuff, which is great, but it's kind of, it is in a little bit of a kind of bubble, which is great, but yeah, I think keys, if I had to do it all again. I'm just gonna answer one last question, and then if there's anything that I didn't answer, we can always follow it on next week. And yeah, thank you for all these questions. Like, I hope it's helped, and just also let me know if you feel like I'm just rambling and need to like move it through a bit quicker. But do you still work with unsigned artists? What do you look for? I do work with unsigned artists. I'm working with an incredible artist at the minute that I'm not going to mention, not because it's like under wraps, but I don't know, maybe I don't want to jinx anything. But she is amazing, and I'm working with her. She has, to me, like all the ingredients of an incredible artist. She has an amazing work ethic. She really knows what she wants from her sound. She knows what she wants from her look. She is also open to my input, which is great, because as any collaborator, you want to feel that you can actually collaborate and work together. She's hungry to learn. She wants to get better. She understands her voice in terms of where it's best. She studies vocals and has that training, so she's well set up, and is a lovely person. So I would say that is the key for me, and really knows what she wants, which is so important. Final question, until next week, Leicester versus Chelsea prediction. Now, Josh is a Chelsea fan and I'm a Leicester fan, so Leicester-Chelsea, I'm going to have to go 2-1 to Leicester. Thank you guys for joining, and I honestly hope it's helped, and keep the questions coming in, and we'll do same time next week at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. And thanks for being here, really appreciate it.